Welcome to Jar of Genius. I'm your host, Russ Perry, and this is a podcast where we dive into the business of creativity. Each episode, I'll explore the minds and stories of innovative leaders and companies who have paved the way and are shaping the future for creative businesses around the world. From groundbreaking business models to extraordinary creative campaigns and the innovations of technology we use and will use ahead, I'm excited to help you not only run a creative business, but thrive in this ever-changing and always challenging landscape. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Jar of Genius. I'm your host, Russ Perry. And today we have someone who I actually spent many hours grinding and struggling while he seemed to not even break a sweat. It's Marc Hodulich, the co-founder and CEO of Everesting 29029. Marc, thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Russ. I promise you that I just mask it well.
I think we just need to start there. I'm going to just I'm probably 8 hours into this event. We'll talk about the event in a minute. Probably one of the most mentally and physically exhausting things I've ever done. And I've done Everest Base Camp Trail. I've done, 18,000 peaks. And here I am in the middle of Utah, in the middle of the day, just grinding and walking. And I come up, actually, you come up on me, you're catching up to me.
Yep.
Hey Russ, how's it going? Not even phased at all around this event that we're doing. And we hang for a bit and then off you go. Actually, I think you stopped to talk to some more people. What were we doing? Can you explain in the most simple terms this crazy, weird, bonkers event that we were doing together?
Well, I have a crazy memory, so I'm actually wearing a snow basin hat from the year you did it last year, and I remember rolling up on you, and you were wearing, I don't know if they were Dior shades. I think they were Dior shades. They're like pit vipers, but they were couture pit vipers, I'm pretty sure. And I know you. I know who you are through Jake. We have some mutual connections, and the Ronzos who've been out. But like meeting you in person on the mountain, exceeded all expectations. You were definitely on brand.
Let me tell you though, these shades, these Dior shades are actually they're great for snow too, because they're super big and super wide. You can pop the lenses out. They're probably not the most cost-effective solution for outdoor events, but they work. They're practical.
Yeah, they work. So good. This is a compliment to you. I remember them. They were good. So what we were doing, we were doing a concept called Everesting, where the goal is to hike 29,029 feet. Business that I started with my partner Jesse at Colin O'Brady back in 2017, and we really wanted to make ultra endurance events approachable. You've done many hard things in your life. There's a lot of people that want to aspire to do something big and just don't know where to start. We're like, look, let's give people an all-inclusive experience where the training's included, where you're going to stay, what you're going to eat. Everything's basically included, but you got to do the work yourself, right? And the work that we were doing, we were hiking Snow Basin Mountain, one of our, we actually have 7 locations this year. One of our amazing locations where you hike up the mountain, you take a gondola down, and you keep doing it. At Snow Basin, it's 13 laps up that mountain, 2,400 feet each lap until you climb the vertical height of Mount Everest, 29,029 feet.
And for anyone listening, it is as crazy as it sounds and worse. It's crazier. But I remember, being on lap 7 and you get to this dark spot in your mind where you're just halfway, but you're like, shit, I have how many more of these? 6 more to go. And then you're like, at least for me, I don't know if this is common, but I'm like, why am I doing this? You don't have to prove anything. You're a successful guy. And a lot of this, you're by yourself. Cause even if you try to hike with people, even if you're just a half mile an hour different in pace or a fraction of it, you get separated. And then, it really becomes this mental part that I think is probably way harder than the physical. It's
without a doubt.
Because there's no one watching. I mean, you could do it, you couldn't. There's not
it's still sport. It's not a race. There's no shift timing. and that's what I love about it. I mean, a lot of the things that I'm into from a design perspective, aesthetically, I'm romantic. I like things that take a long time to build. I like things that don't scale. I like things that are handmade. I have a vinyl record player in my office, right? I like those things that remind me of a different age. And at 29, it was about doing something as a community, but also you're right. No one's watching. I mean, there's our staff in there and you have volunteers supporting you, but if you do it or not is really internally up to you. And the challenge is so hard mentally because there's no shortcuts, right? Your average marathon finisher is 4 hours. Your average Ironman finisher is 15 hours. Our average finisher is 30 hours,
Right.
right? And like that's going to sound really intimidating. It's going to make the event sound really unsexy. It's just a slow walk, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no like danger of climbing. You're not rappelling down anything. There's no ice or crevasses, right? You're just hiking up a trail.
Right.
But that part of it and the fact you're doing the same trail over and over again is what makes it so mentally challenging. I think why people get so many benefits, you have so many opportunities to quit on yourself. And you don't have to be a great athlete to do this. The majority of people who do this have never done a marathon, much less an ultra, right? Like this is kind of an intro event that tests you way more mentally than physically.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to out there. Then there's some bougie stuff about it too. A little massage, like some good food, but we'll get to that. Let's go back, 10 plus years. You're in finance, you're, I imagine, doing stuff on your own, like this space, I don't even know what the industry is called because there's been other things. Like I remember my first sort of like activity, challenge, physical challenge. I think it was maybe a Tough Mudder or something,
Sure.
like where they have an obstacle course race. And actually I'm a little nuts. The first and only Tough Mudder I ever did was the world's toughest Mudder. It's 24 hours. So that was the only one I was like, I'm done.
A bit of my team came from Tough Mudder.
I'm done with that. So what is the category of this industry? Like, what's the term you guys use inside ball?
It's I love you asked this question because people ask me what I do. I don't even know how to answer. 7 or 8 years,
you're like
right?
Crazy like team building.
I think we're in like adventure travel.
Okay.
Right. That's really what I think. I mean, if you think about the towns that we're in, Jackson Hole, Sun Valley, Whistler, like we're going to these beautiful places. So there's a travel component. But then you are doing an adventure and a challenge as part of it. We're way more than an endurance event. Right. So there's pieces of endurance, there's pieces of travel, there's pieces, as you said, that are bougie, right? And in Whistler, you stay at the Fairmont, right? And the glamping tents you stay in Sun Valley and Snow Basin have like turn down service.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like,
I got a gift bag.
I like to think of myself as like bougie gritty, right? I don't know if that's a term, but like, I like to work really hard and then I like to be pampered.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to have real spritz at the end of a really hard run. So it kind of combined a good amount of the things that I really liked. But what I've always wanted to position ourselves as a premium or a luxury product, right?
Yeah.
And give people something to really aspire to, but make it easy to commit, right? Hard to do, easy to commit.
So what in your life got you into endurance sports and adventure? Is it a masochistic kind of side you've always had, or was there a path that led you to it that was transformational? Like because I don't feel like anyone like when you're doing it, you're like always asking yourself, why am I doing this? But then people are drawn to it. And I'm always curious, like, what's the light you're drawn towards that pushes you through so many challenges?
Sure. It wasn't always like that, Russ. I ran track in high school, then I ran track at Auburn University for a few years, competitive miler, or not so competitive in college miler. I have picked all around the SEC. Funny story, I used to line up in high school and look up and down the line to see like who's the one guy I needed to beat to win. And in college, I would look up and down the line at the start of the race to find the one guy I needed to beat and not come in last, right? Things changed a lot in college. But then look, I was living in New York. I always stayed really fit. I lived in Manhattan for about 10 years after college, got married to my wife, Stacy, and had our kids, Chase and Dylan. I would run to the gym. I would lift hard and run home. I always wanted to look good with my shirt off, right? Like that was like a vanity play. But I wasn't doing marathons. I wasn't doing ultra endurance stuff at all. And then in 2016, my best friend from college, and he works with us closely, Matt Burrell, was doing an Ironman and just naturally went to support my friend. And went down to Florida with my wife and boys, and my 6-year-old son, Chase, looked at me, he's like, Dad, can you do an Ironman? I was like, if Matt can do it, obviously. We had this rivalry kind of playfully for years. So the next year, signed up to do an Ironman, right? And like, I'd never done a marathon.
Right into it.
Swim the other side of the pool, how to did swim lessons. Like I knew how to swim. I didn't know how to properly swim, right?
Laps.
And that was a real entree into it. It was like, wow, like I'm really challenging myself with something completely new. And I did one Ironman, I was done with it. And then went on to do Leadville, 100 miler. This is at the same time we launched 29. So I was starting to see the benefits of putting something really big on my calendar and getting really uncomfortable doing something. And I'll pause and just say, I think you have to be careful though to always keep things, let things swing back in balance. Because when you do something like an Ironman or a Leadville, you're sacrificing maybe your business, maybe your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids. And so when I did those big things, I wanted to make sure I let the pendulum swing the other way to where I was supporting them much more. So I really haven't done a lot of those big events in a long time. I've been doing 29 of 29 because I'm at the events and I want to hike with people like you.
But you can bring your family to those things though too. They're hanging out with you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very much a community event.
Yeah, I do for sure.
I mean, I go back to my first like big endurance event that was outside, and it was summiting Mount Shasta. You know, and that was an all day event, and you're camping and you're hiking and you're glaciering. I didn't even know what crampons were. I like learned what crampons were as I was putting them on, and my buddy's like, "This is how you do it," like, you know, and I found that there is like this sort of I would say this like moment during these events where you are really excited for them, and then you hate it and you're like, why am I doing this? And then there's this turn inside of it that is just magical, like in the sense of like you're accomplishing something you never thought you're going to accomplish. Really the trick to most of these things like is like just don't stop, like just keep moving forward. Like you don't have to go fast, you don't have to like break any records or anything. It's just like keep going. And that to me is something that I've always taken away from anything of these big challenges, is like it's like a commitment to yourself and almost like training for your mind and yourself that's like, hey, really the path to go forward on is just to keep going, just to do that. And the takeaway of it, was, I mean, it's just like, it's hard to describe on a podcast, but like, it's unlike, like, I've never felt that way I've done half marathon, I've done, half Ironman, like it's cool, it's fun, it's great. But those things are just a different container than I'm just on my own, or I'm just with some people doing this. And the finish line is like, so you can't even see it. You don't even know what's over the hill. But it's something that I think is probably part of the magic of what you've created at 29029 is like for many of these people, like you mentioned, this is the first time they're ever kind of touching on that part of what they're capable of.
Yeah, I think there's a few things there. So one is sleep deprivation and hunger, right? Those present amazing challenges to people that really get you to take away all those layers of who we are and what we've accomplished. And I think it just levels the playing field to like, we're just all humans just trying to find our best self. So I think people end up being very vulnerable on the mountain. There's a true community that gets built through these events, whether it's ours or other ultras. When you're out there doing something for so long and you're surrounded by nature as your silent partner, right? You tend to be much more vulnerable. You tend to be open and more giving and obviously empathetic to others. I think everyone's EQ goes up a lot in doing these events. And then you're proud of yourself. Like when you're a kid, I look at my boys now, they're 12 and 14. They're still proud of themselves doing things for the first time or learning something. That is rapidly deteriorating from the time when they were 2 or 4 or 5, right?
Bar keeps getting higher.
Yeah. Well, it's just you take things for granted. And like, I don't know about yourself, but you write down certain business goals. I know in my YPO forum and others, I'm constantly monitoring things. And like, I look back to goals I had years ago that I destroyed. There was never that moment of even realizing I surpassed that goal. I wrote it down. I thought about it forever. Then we blew past something. I didn't celebrate it. And I think events like this give you an opportunity where you really are scared of failure. You want this red hat as a finisher so bad, even though it's just a red hat, but it's what it symbolizes, what it means to you means so much. And because you care about it so much, I believe when you finish, it does feel like magic because you had all those opportunities to quit. It is hard. It does take a long time. That's not taking anything away from a half marathon or a marathon. It's just those things, when it really starts to hurt, then they're over. And this, you're in it for a long time, right? You're in that pain cave and you get to ride the highs for a while and then the lows for a while. So I do believe it's a mixture of being out there for a long time, being in nature, and also doing something that's foreign that you really don't know if you can do yet until you've done it. And I think that gives you a sense of being proud of yourself, that as you get older, our average age is 47 years old on the mountain.
Yeah.
As we get older, you just do less of that stuff.
I mean, and I think there is too, like the process of preparation that creates such a different level of growth that for me, you know, when I think about like, where did I grow the most in the process of summiting a mountain or completing an endurance event? It wasn't that day. Like, yeah, you peak on that day because it's like where everything comes together and it's the best you feel, especially if you get to finish. But it's like I gotta get up at 5 a.m. every day, or I can't get up at 5 a.m. because I have kids and I got this. And so I'm gonna have to take my midday off and do this. And like the skills and the commitment and the discipline that's formed just in the process is actually life-changing, way more than the red hat or the medal or whatever else. And that's often one of the reasons why I come back to these crazy things, is because it's like I feel like I might be plateauing a little bit, or I might be getting a little bit comfortable in, you know, my day-to-day. And what's better to get uncomfortable? Well, you got to figure out how to train. You got to figure out how to eat. You got to learn a new skill. You got to do whatever it is. And these moments in these events are like a forcing function for that, where without it, you're kind of like, life's good. Like I'm all right where I'm at.
Well, those get the most out of it are those that kind of trust the process and train for it for a long time.
Mhm.
I mean, this is one of those events where if you're moderately in shape, I was listening to some of your previous podcasts, and then you got started into fitness. Is it Orange Theory? I think I heard one of the
very. I
like,
love crushing those elderly folks at Orange Theory.
Yeah, right. You know? So if you're in there slaying the elderly at Orange Theory day in and day out, you can most likely roll up to a 29 and 29 and finish.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're fit, you're in shape. If you're out there long enough, eat enough calories, you're going to finish.
Right.
That's a completely different experience. And if you've looked at this, circled it on your calendar for a year, woke up, trained for it every day, follow the training protocol, listen to the calls, we're messaging other people about what shoes and what hiking poles and what headlamp to wear, and you're making a big deal about it, right? It's like when you're a kid and you're counting down to Christmas Day, right? You're counting on how many days comes Christmas, or maybe it's Passover or whatever it is, or Hanukkah, whatever it is. You're counting down the days, and then the day arrives. It means so much more than if it just happens. And I think that that's so true here. I'm learning how to play the guitar, right? And it's maddeningly hard for me. But just this last week, I just had a little bit of a breakthrough, right? Where it actually started to sound like music. And it only felt so good because I've been doing it for 30 minutes to an hour a day since January 1st. And to have like 5 months of like work to have something actually sound decent felt great. Whereas if I just picked up the guitar and I was a natural right away, like I don't know that I would have that same sense of pride and accomplishment, because I've had so many opportunities to be like, I should just read a book. I should just go and lift in the gym or go sit in the sauna. I should just go do something else good for myself. But I'm forcing myself to do this because the endurance part is a little bit easy to me now, right? I hiked every event the last 2 years. It doesn't mean that it was easy, but it was easier than maybe it is for others because I'm just doing it all the time.
Well, and you have a level of certainty inside of what you're capable of. And I think that's always the question that I'm trying to ask myself, is like, where am I unsure? Where's the answer? Like, I don't know. And it could be in can I do this event? Or like, I've never done it in a sense. I've never been to this place. I've never, been over that hill or done that thing. And I think when you push into that, you push into the, I don't know. And on the other side of it, you find I can. That's the greatest value. And that's like those moments where you're like, wow, that was so worth it.
I love getting to the place where I want to quit on myself and realizing that I didn't, and I like who I am in those moments, right? I quit one time in my life. I still finished the race, but I let in, right? It hurt too much. Instead of leaning into it, I backed off. I still sit with it. I was 16 years old. I still remember exactly where I was in the race, what was happening. And I just know now I look for opportunities, not every day, but I do look for opportunities where I want to quit or back off, and I decide to lean in. I like who I am when I do that, right? Like it's never ended up being a negative, right? There's never been a workout that I've done where I've like written in my notes or a journal or even in my training peaks, like, I'm upset I did that workout. Like, you're always glad you did it, right?
Is there ever a right time to quit though? If you can think outside of endurance, like what tell me about a time where it was the right time to quit.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to call it quitting, but I mean, I had a really great business in New York. That was my first kind of, after I left, finance, management, consulting, et cetera. I had a great business. I didn't align with my business partner, right? And I loved the business. It was profitable. It was doing really well. We were raising millions of dollars for pediatric cancer research. It was like we were profitable. We raised a ton of money for a good cause. But I quit on a partnership, right? And it was one of those things where I saw long term we weren't going to align. I'd look back and say, there's probably a better way to have made that partnership dissolve than how it went. So that's one example. Another is a business right after that I started was a boom bust, went phenomenal, events all across the nation, sold out, couldn't scale fast enough, raised capital for the first and only time, and then, started going bankrupt. Not bankrupt, we started losing money. And I think fact patterns matter, right? Year one in that business, every single partner was amazing, allowed us to get to market faster, allowed us to have a lower cost per acquisition. We had huge beer festivals at the end of our runs, and they're supplying all of the beer. We were partnering with all these craft breweries, but we didn't have a moat. So year two and year three, all of those track clubs and breweries were then producing their own events based off of our concept. So our partners became our competitors. And I was like, wait, this isn't going to work, right? I tried like hell. And I wouldn't say it was, I guess you could deem it in for our conversation quitting. But what I did was I refunded all the customers all their money by taking out a loan, right? Rather than just wrapping at the business and all these people just not having an event because we were going out of business. I didn't want to have people have an experience ever with me where they paid for something and they didn't get it. And if I couldn't deliver it because we were going to lose so much money, I could at least return all their money, right? And so that was a form of, I guess you would say quitting, but it was realizing that more hard work, raising more money wasn't going to fix the problem, right? Just didn't have a business that was going to be able to scale and be profitable. And so while it felt like a failure, it was also, I think, very mature just to not lose more people's money. and honestly, to be able to pivot to something, not give up, because I took a huge financial loss.
Right.
Because I personally refunded 4 races worth of participants. It took me years to pay off. But I left there with my head held high that the business isn't going to work, but I'm going to wind this down the right way. Even though the LLC and the laws of our country allow me to just shut it down and walk away, that didn't feel right. But the fact patterns showed me in a former business partnership, it wasn't going to be a long-term partnership that was going to work well. And then when I went off on my own and did something that it just wasn't working and more of the same wasn't going to change it. Believe me, we rebranded, we tried everything.
Right.
We changed price, formats, everything. And once you do that for 3 years, you just kind of realize hey, I can't outwork or out hustle this. It's just not the right idea at the right time. And you need to be able to walk away at a certain point in time.
And I want to dive into that just for a second. How do you know when more time, more effort isn't the solution and walking away is? Not just in business, just in life, relationships or family members or whatever. Because I feel like that is some of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life.
Yeah. With the business, it was realizing that every idea I could come up with, we tried and it didn't work.
Just all options.
And at a certain point in time, you just say there's only so much we can do with this.
Yeah.
And I'm the last man standing. I think with relationships, you have to decide what your end goal is, what great looks like. And if what you're going through right now can be improved upon, that you can get to great, sure. But if there's no goal at the end of the day in sight, or you don't see a future with someone, with a business, you have to be really honest with yourself. You can't fake it. So make too many entrepreneurs fake something because they think that the outside world wants them to do that. And look, I realized firsthand when we sold 29 and 29, which we since bought back, it wasn't a mistake to sell. It's by far the right move. No regrets in selling it. But I very quickly realized that it wasn't about a sale. It was that I wanted to shepherd that community. I wanted to be in control. I didn't like someone else potentially having control of something I cared that much about. So to me, in going and getting it back, although it ended up being a good financial trade, it didn't matter. Right. My non-negotiable was get the thing back.
Right.
And I had partners that supported me in that. So I think you guys got to be really honest with yourself, which is hard to do when you're younger. I think as I've gotten older, it's been easier for me to articulate what makes me happy, what brings me fulfillment, which is way different than achievement. Right. And if you see fact patterns lining up in a way where your own behaviors aren't necessarily lining up with what you think great looks like, then I think you got to address them sooner rather than later.
You got to get out onto a mountain for 33 hours and think
You know,
about
you sort
where
out a
you're
lot.
going in life.
Yeah.
Let's come
Yeah.
back to 29029. And I actually don't have a lot of conversations about creativity and design, but I have to talk about how dope your guys' branding is,
Thank you.
experience, visual design, even the website, like everything is so top notch. So
Thank you.
for anyone who's done like a race that is not 29029, you try to like go sign up for the, you know, Turkey Trot 10K. And it's like you're traveling back to 2001 on some, you know, municipality website that you barely can process your credit card. Like it's a nightmare. You guys, it's like, I feel like I'm buying Peloton, you know, like I feel like it's like so clean, so good. And that experience, honestly, and I'm a critic of these things, so I'm not just fluffing air here, is how it is from the point of sign up through the online supplements, to the coaching, to the swag, to the like the gear's good, the experience, the food, the parties, even the gondolas coming down the mountain had a cool brand there. I remember like I wanted to get the cool light up music gondola, you know, as the race. So like this isn't by accident, obviously. Like, where did you start with your vision for the brand, knowing that this is more than just a bib and a logo, that this is an entire life-changing experience for people?
Yeah, I mean, look, I learned a lot from a failure of what I didn't like doing.
Yeah.
So at the company, which was called BeerFit, kind of a play on CrossFit, right?
The truth comes out. You almost didn't say the name of it earlier. You're like, all right, well, let's put it out there.
We'll get into it, Russ. Look, our branding was cool and playful at the time, but it didn't align with what I personally like doing.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of bougie, gritty thing wasn't necessarily portrayed there. I study a lot of luxury brands, right? And like, if you read like Hermes' annual report, it is the most gorgeous annual report you will ever see. You will see that the same care they put into a Birkin or Kelly bag they sell for $25,000, they put into a PDF showing their financials.
Right.
And that just always struck me as, man, that is culture. That is saying this brand, everything we do is top notch, right? And so in getting to start 29, when Jesse and I were first sitting and we brought in Colin, it was my vision for it was we have to create a whole new category. The category we have to do things that don't scale from the very beginning. Right. That's James Clear, right? I love him, the way he writes. And one of his top things for running his business is do things that don't scale. And so in the very beginning, it was calling every participant on the phone. That was me. For years, I welcomed every participant myself, right? And then it was handwritten notes at the end of every season, thanking people for climbing with us. And I hired and was able to put together a team that wanted to do those same things, right? It was one of the founders at Tough Mudder. It was our head of safety and course management at Tough Mudder. It was people who saw great for 25,000 people. They did an amazing job. They're like, wow, what could we do if we didn't have any partners, right? And what I mean by partners is when you have sponsors, they have different objectives. They want to advertise to your demo. Our Racewag has nothing. We don't have any paid partners, right? And that was a conscious decision to say we need a ticket price that allows us to own a business and operate it without losing money, where we don't have to serve other people. We can just serve the customer.
And let me interject. You do have brands that participate, but I could tell without even knowing you, you know, we met on the mountain for the first time, but like we have some common friends, but like when I saw the brands that were represented, I could tell that these were like hand-selected companies that you probably get a lot of people reaching out, but you're like, what's going to be the best for our experience, for our brand? And the quality, I mean, it was so obvious because it wasn't just like a plastic bag full of a bunch of shit thrown together with some coupons, you know, like, here you go. Like, it was like, and even like after the event, I received some like a thoughtful gift and like, here you go. One of our partners wanted to give this to you guys. I think AG1 sent out something. So it was like, whoa, like this was like a hiking event. And here I am feeling like I'm, and you know, at the Porsche dealership.
And look, I think it came from the customer experience being central from the very beginning, right? Jesse just looked at me. Jesse, so my partner, looked at me and said, we'll win if we care the most. That's it. You follow your vision, your brand, you build it. But if we build a team and we care the most, we're going to win. And so what that truly means is in every single aspect. And so, on Mountain, I've done other events that are wonderful events, but they have one sponsor. If you don't like Cliff products or you don't like Gatorade or whatever, like you're stuck with it or bring your own stuff. And I just thought, well, that's That's ridiculous. It's way harder to do what we're doing, to have multiple partners that are supplying product, but you have choice. And these are products that I use
Right.
and that I trust. And so I think if you're willing to carry it through to every aspect of the business, in the same as Hermes example, hiring a financial analyst and making them care about graphic design and then being like, what the hell? Like, don't I just need to just put together our pro forma financials? It's like, no, make them look beautiful. And so I have a team that's willing to execute and cares as much, if not more than I do, about a lot of the aspects of the event that are really unseen to most people.
Right. And I think that's the creative strategy that I see through and through with many successful brands. But for sure with 29 is like coming back to the beginning of our conversation, like this is for many people. And you maybe remind me on the stat, like the first time they've ever done anything, not even like close, but like remotely close. Like this is like them jumping into the deep. I remember there was like at our Snow Basin event, 70-plus-year-old lady. She'd never even like done anything, and like this is her.
You never been on a trail before.
Yeah, she never like this is her first thing. And to think about like, okay, whether or not they finish, this is going to be an event and an experience they will always remember. That's, to me, like some of the most creative thinking of any kind of business. Is success isn't about, do you get up 13 times? Success is that you came here and you did what you could do. And here's all the pieces we put together to make sure that you walk away with just a story and memories and friendships and connection. And that is, I think, not always seen in many, many places. And it sucks because guys like us care about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm glad you felt that and saw it. It's a delicate balance between like participation awards and giving people aspirational goals. But you just want to create a place for people. I think it's a safe place to fail. And most of the time you're not going to fail because maybe your goal is to do 10 climbs and you get there and something happens, you realize maybe 10's not in the cards for me. But some coach, some volunteer, some other participant encourages you after you've already quit. And you're sitting at the base of the mountain getting a massage or having your Aperol spritz or whatever it is, and someone says, get back out there, there's more time, do one more hike.
Yeah.
That person who quit on themselves but then gets back there, they leave knowing they're capable of more, right? They leave knowing there's people out there in this world who are not selfish, who care about them, right? So I truly believe that we're giving people a lot of tools, just believe in themselves more and put a little bit more on their plate and expect more of themselves than others, right? And being able to show up in moments. I know for me, this event has taught me patience. I still need to work on my patience because I like to move fast, but
which is like
really
virtually impossible at these events. You can maybe move a little bit, but you're not getting any speed. If you want to hustle, you'll burn out.
Yeah. So, there's no way to fast forward this event, right? It's still, there's just a lot of great life lessons that come out of it. And it's something, look, as we think about the brand and the design you brought up, it's something that as you grow, right? We went from 1 event to 2 events to 3. Now we've made our way up to 7. It's a pretty slow climb, no pun intended, 7 events, basically adding 1 a year, right? It's not rapid expansion, but there was a time period where I didn't approve every single piece of logo usage. And that lasted 1 season. And 2 things happened that let me realize we can never expand past the point where I can't approve every single usage of the logo, right? Because it means that much. And if that means we're capped at 5 events or 6, then that's fine.
Right.
And that's the business that I'm happy to run because I have such a commitment to the brand and the quality of what our logo and experience stands for, that letting it slip for the sake of a little bit more top line revenue or profit just doesn't sit right.
So I think as a business, it's almost comical to me because in endurance and climbing, there's always a peak on the other side of the hill. There's always a bigger mountain and there's always a bigger challenge. So you've gone from 1 to 2 to 7. What's the next summit you're chasing for the brand and for the company? Like what's the big scary thing that you're looking out at it and that you're like, I don't like, how are we going to do that? If there is, I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah. I look at the brand that we built, which I'm extremely proud of and that my team's built. And I think as far as live events go, we're kind of reaching our top line. Like it's kind of stretching to the point where I don't want to to scale that business anymore because we're going to lose quality, which I'm not willing to do. But the brand can stand for so much more. I mean, we literally own the height of Everest, right? We own the IP, right? So everyone has their own personal Everest, whether it's you launching this podcast this year or someone writing a book or launching a business or me learning guitar, like you have your own personal Everest. And I think about what can we do that's on brand around adventure, that's on brand with challenging yourselves, where the brand of 29 extends, right? So let's just say I'm looking at a lot of areas where I think people want to continue to stretch themselves, and we can be a part of that process, but we may not have to be the event provider, right? So I'm alluding to a few things. I just think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to take what we do and help people achieve more, right? And so that's exciting and scary to me. And it's also like, look, aspirationally, I'd like to own our own mountain. Like I'll come out and say it.
There
I don't
we
think
go.
it's going to happen.
It came.
I don't think it's going to, yeah. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. It doesn't make any financial sense. I don't want to own a ski resort and we're only using it during the summer months, right? So there's like a lot of reasons why it doesn't make sense. But if I were to say, hey, dream, and Mark, I'm 43, Mark at 60, what do you want to have? I'm like, I want to have my own gondola and mountain. Why wouldn't I? Right? I want to be able to do this thing whenever I want, not at the whim of ski seasons and other events, and having that sense of place would be great. So yeah, that's scary. But you think big about those types of things. And I think the brand deserves that eventually. I don't know when, but eventually it does.
It's put into the universe here. I'm sure you've talked about it before.
Right.
I do have one selfish request. It is an event idea, but it's not a climb. It's not a challenge. Like creative entrepreneurship leadership conference, taking this mindset, taking this, this community of people who feel like this is like they are drawn towards it, and putting those people together for a few days and in a way challenging them and making those deeper connections. Because I talked to so many cool folks on the mountain, didn't have a pen, didn't have my phone, wasn't connect. Like it was and to say, hey, all of you, we're going to do this, but instead of being like dying, for 30 hours, we're going to have a different bougie experience, but we're going to build our own mountains and discuss what those challenges are and come together. I'd be there. I'd be first on your list, man, for sure.
Awesome, man. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, look, Mark, let's rattle off best places to connect with you as well if someone's interested in this crazy bonkers thing we've been talking about. Probably sold out for this year though, right? You guys
Yeah. Look, knock on wood. I mean, we did sell out all of our events when we went on sale. We sold them out in 4 minutes. It's been a long road to get there. But like I said, we keep a pretty tight schedule, 7 events this year. The best way to find us is just 29,029 feet to 29029 if you Google it.
Awesome.
My Instagram handle is Marc, MARC 29029. And look, I just encourage everyone to put something big on their calendar.
Love it.
Right? Like I think for me, habits are hard as you get older. It's tough. You get pulled in a lot of directions. Just every year I have one thing to look back on. And that's borrowing from my partner who certainly inspired me to like every year have something you can look back at and say like, that was the big thing that I did. It doesn't, for me, that this year, it's so great. It's guitar.
Yeah.
But the end of this year, I'm gonna be able to truly jam with my son. And like, that's going to be a big win that I'm always going to remember. It's like, this is the year of calluses on these 3 fingers, right? So
hey, I want to see you at the peak of the mountain serenading everybody as they cross the finish line.
I'm not going to sing.
Get their, okay. All right. Do you know when I did Everest Base Camp? Do you know who I hiked it with?
You went with Posner,
Mike Posner, yeah.
He can serenade.
He did a concert at the base of Everest, and wasn't even phased. So that's your aspiration. If you guys need to get connected, I can make it happen.
Maybe I can play rhythm guitar for him. Right. And I'll throw in my Dior shade.
I love it. Sad thing, I actually lost those pair last year. I know. I'm using, I think, just Louis Vuitton ones right now, so they're not as cool.
Yeah, it's all right. It's gritty bougie.
Gritty bougie. That's right. I also haven't shaved in a while, and I'm not cutting my hair, so it balances out.
You wore a jacket at the start of this podcast.
I gotta take it off immediately. Yeah. All right. Well, look, Mark, so good to connect. Everybody, anything we mentioned, we're going to have on the show notes. You can go to jarofgenius.com, subscribe to the podcast, get connected with Mark. And I'll tell you what, sometimes they do have cancellations. So if you are getting on the list for one of these events, they're coming up this season, but definitely can check out what's coming up next. You also got an alternative event, right? Like the trail.
Yeah, we're launching something new this year called Trail.
Okay.
So inspired by your Everest base camp track, which is actually 79 miles, typical base camp track. 3 marathons, 3 days, and you got 12 hours each day to cover a mountain marathon in Lake Tahoe. So trying to create a little bit more communities. Each day you get 12 hours and then break bread, have dinner and some drinks before going out the next day to tackle the next marathon. So that'll be in Lake Tahoe, right in Jake's backyard in October.
I love it. Shout out to our homie Jake Knight. If you're listening to this, he's our common friend here. All right, Mark. Well, thanks so much. Thanks to everyone else who's listening. Don't forget to leave a review to help us get found by other crazy people wanting to do big things. And I'll talk to you soon, Mark. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Russ. Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Jar of Genius, sponsored by Design Pickle. To learn more about the topics discussed, get access to any of the links mentioned, and submit ideas for future seasons, head over to jarofgenius.com. Now, if you enjoyed the show, you know the drill. A solid rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find what we are creating and join the conversation. We'll see you next time, and never forget, creativity is your secret strategic weapon.